In this video, we're going to continue on from where we left off on setting up Ubuntu on Azure, and we're going to create a hardened Apache server for running Joomla on Azure. When we created our Azure Linux VM, we added 3 ports to be opened up, SSH. When we created our Azure VM, we opened up 3 ports, SSH, HTTPS, and HTTP. On the right here, I have my Azure web portal. I'm going to copy and paste the IP address into the web browser. Now we don't have Apache running, and even though we have our ports open on Azure, we don't have anything for it to connect to because the VM doesn't recognize it. So we're going to log into the VM through SSH via PowerShell, and we're going to install Apache. Now that we're logging into the Linux server, this is pretty much where our association with Azure ends, as we're just configuring a Linux box. Log in here. So we're logged in. We have our Ethernet address, how much memory we're using, and any swap processes. So we're going to start by setting up our LAMP server. We're going to now install Apache 2. Yes, we want to continue. Alright, so now we have an Apache 2 server. We're going to set up and install MariaDB. And to do that, we need to add the key and the repository. I will be providing detailed step-by-step instructions on my blog, optionkey.blogspot.ca. There we go. So we have our key, and we're going to add the repository. Now we're going to run the apt-get update. Alright, now we're going to install the server and the client. Now we're going to specify the root password for the MariaDB, and really, after we get this all configured, you really should look at adding additional user to the database so that you're not using the root user to set up the Joomla database. So my goal for this tutorial is to give system administrators, webmasters, DevOps, people who are just interested, or people that just need a place to go to get started, where you can go through step by step, everything's there, this is how you do it, and you'll end up with a secure web server trying to follow best practices. And I will have references for everything that I'm doing at the bottom of my blog post, optionkey.blogspot.ca. So now we're going to run the secure MySQL install for MariaDB. Do that by doing sudo MySQL secure installation. Put in our password we just made. Change the root password, no. Remove anonymous users, yes. Disallow root login remotely, yes. You may have a reason to allow it though, so do what you need to do to set up how you need it. Reload privileges. So now we're going to set up the MySQL databases for our Joomla websites. So to do that, we're going to shell into the MySQL database using the command line access. MySQL -u root -p, put in our password. Alright. Now, for creating databases through the console, I'm just going to use create database with the name. We'll call this web1. Don't forget your semicolon. And we'll create one, call it web2. Because we're also going to be setting up virtual hosts. And once that's done, we can exit. Alright, now we're going to be needing a couple utilities. If we're going to be downloading and installing Joomla, we're going to need a zip extractor. So we're going to install unzip, and we're going to also install PHP 7.2. I know 7.3 is on its way. We'll have to do an update for that when we're ready for that. So now we're going to install unzip by doing apt-get install unzip. And we're going to install PHP, so we need to add the repository. Do an update. And now we need quite a few things for PHP. You see we have libapache2, modphp, common, mbstring, xml-rpc, soap, GD library, MySQL, CLI, zip, and curl. Okay, now the install is complete. Now if we had got a libzip error, there are a number of sources we would have to add. But since we didn't get any of that, we're going to make a couple edits to our PHP INI file and then create a PHP Info File. So we're going, I like using VI, use whatever, if you want to use Nano or Emacs or whatever you want. Alright, so here, for hardening, we want to disable output buffering, change the value from 4096 to off. Suppose PHP should be off. There's our memory limit. I'm going to leave it at 128 meg for that, but depending on what you're reading and who you're talking to, I've seen it go up to 256 meg. Here we are. We also want to change this post max size because I want to increase the amount of the size of the files that people can upload. I'm going to go to 25 megabytes. We change that there, and we change it right here, max upload size. And I want to change the number of max files that they can upload to 10. I changed it to 10 not for any particular reason. I just felt like changing it from 25 to 10. You can change it to whatever you'd like. And that's where we're going to leave that. And now if you want to see any of those changes, you need to restart Apache, but there's a file I want to make first before we do that. We're going to go ahead and create our PHP Info File now. So everything on our server is located in the var www HTML directory. Go PHP Info, PHP. And we're just going to do PHP Info. Now we're going to restart Apache. So here we have our IP. We see that Apache's still fine. Nothing's changed there. But now our PHP info, 7.2.12. We have all our information for our Apache handlers, HTTP configs. There's our post max size. Max file upload. This file contains everything we would want to know about our PHP installation for our Apache web server. So now we're going to set up virtual hosts. So I said everything's in the var www HTML directory. This is true, but unless we want to redo the Apache web service, we're going to be putting our folders in the var www HTML directory. I'm going to do a make directory var www HTML site 1. Well, we'll stick with the MySQL database names because this is a demo, and web 2. So now you can see we got directory web 1, web 2. And we can also see that here. Nothing there. You can see our Apache headers and all that good stuff. So let's set up our virtual hosts. So in our Apache 2 directory, we have a couple folders that we're going to be using: sites available and configs available. So we're going to be working with sites available at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of 000-default.conf. And we're going to do the same with again, and we're going to call it web2. Now we're going to make a couple changes to those conf files. So right here where we see our server admin, I'm going to change this to the domain web1. I want to add 2 more, I guess call them server variables, or I want to add server name, and I'm just going to call it webdemo.optionkey.ca because that's the domain I'm going to be using, and server alias. It's going to be web1.optionkey.ca. We're just going to that. We'll do the same to web2. Alright, that's all we're going to do for now here. We'll be coming back to this. Alright, with that done, we're going to disable our default config and enable our 2 virtual configs. Do that, we do sudo a2 this site, 2 S's. Alright, so it says it's been disabled. We have to reload Apache, but we're going to enable our 2 virtual sites. A2en site, web1.conf, and web2.conf. Service Apache 2, restart. Alright, so now when we put in our IP address, we just see web1 because that's the first one we enabled. And you can see we are unable to get to the other directories. And it's super important that the alias matches in the virtual host what we're going to be putting in for our DNS. Okay, so now we're going to create add our user to the www-data group. The reason why we're doing that is so Joomla needs to be able to run scripts and whatnot, and to do that, because it's a member of the it's a www data user, and by default it is an unprivileged user. So we need to be able to give access for the group to read and execute, and in some cases write. So, and that's what we're going to do. We're going our user we're using for setting this up. We have a strong password, all that. It's going to be, it's the owner of the web files and whatnot. we're going to just allow www data to be able to run the files that Joomla needs to run. So do that. Pseudo User Mod -a big G www-data demo admin. Now we're going to need to log out and log back in for this to take effect. So we'll do that now. Alright. So now when I go groups, you see I'm a member of the www data. Whereas before, you'd see I was not a member of the www data. Alright, so on our Web 1, Web 2, we're going to change the group because, as I said, www data does need access. We're going to make it recursive, even though there's nothing there at the moment. Do the same with Web 2. Then I'm changing ownership to wdata group user where. You can see none of our permissions have changed, but the group ownership, which will allow for our execution, will be fine. Now we're going to upload Joomla 3.9. Alright, so now that we're ready to install Joomla, we're going to have to log out of our server. I want to go to where I have my Joomla. I'm going to need to SCP it to the server. Throw it in our home directory. Put in password. There we go. We're uploading. Alright. Now we can SSH back into our server. So we put it in our home directory. There it is. Now I'm going to copy and paste it. We're going to do it on Web 1 first. We'll cd into the directory. Okay, there we go. I'm going to unzip. Now when you're SCPing Joomla or whatnot, usually comes down as like stable release or something like that. I usually like to shorten it because it makes it a lot easier. So there we go. We're unzipped here, and now when we do a refresh, we get our web installer. Web 1 demo. We'll stick with, web demo 1. I could tell you all the passwords and everything because I'm blowing this away after. Why? Because that's just how I roll. Okay. Demo 1. Right, database, localhost, root. You should probably set up a new user for doing that. That way the root database doesn't get compromised. There we are. So you can see configuration writable, yes. Everything is set up for recommended values. Install. We'll just install it here. Alright, Joomla is installed. Remove installation folder. Now we can view our site. It doesn't want to get rid of our installation folder. That's fine, we can do it from here. For whatever reason, our web server doesn't want to remove the installation directory, so we'll just rename it to delete, and we'll just delete it later. This is, after all, just a demo. And we're going to just say we got rid of the installation folder and move on, because this is starting to get long. Alright, so there's our site. Do a new tab, administrator. Alright, so now we can configure our configuration. Add URL, suffix. We'll set up a cookie domain. System. Do any caching. Server. Report errors for HTTPS. I'm going to turn on page compression. And if there's anything else we want to do, probably the most important reason why we did what we did is so we can. The most important reason why we did what we did is so we can add install from web, but because we had extracted everything, it doesn't quite have full group ownership over everything yet. So we're just going to rerun that. And that should do it. So there we go. Just had to rerun that again after extracting the files. Though you can see we could create and execute from before. So a couple things we're going to add to this. We're going to add keep a backup and a keep admin. It's just easier for adding these tools for doing any kind of permission management that we may need to do. Admin tools, fix permissions, got to password protect the administrator site. Now, we have a little issue at the moment because we don't have our server hardened to allow for the use of .htaccess files, and we're going to remedy that right now. So to enable the .htaccess, so to harden our server and allow the use of htaccess files, we're going to enable A2N modrewrite, and we will be required to restart the Apache server. We will have to add the following options: options index, follow symlinks, allow override all, and require all granted. So here we want to go to our Apache 2 directory, sites available. I'm going to edit web1.conf, and I want to add the following: directory where our website is, alright. Now with that done, I want to enable modrewrite, and we'll have to restart Apache. Alright, so with that done, we try go to our min tools, we get our login. So now we're able to use .htaccess files. Now we're going to talk about securing the web server using the security headers by enabling the A2N mod headers module by editing the security.conf file located in the etc Apache 2 conf available directory. Right, we'll have to restart Apache 2. But before we do that, let's just do a quick example of why we need to do this. securityheaders.com. So get an F, and we'll also use observatory from Mozilla. So we need to set up our DNS, and you see we got a D. We got to remove some keys, and we'll go through and get everything else configured here. So just for getting the header set up and whatnot, I'm going to go through a couple things we need to do. So we want to go to config available, conf available. We want to edit the security.conf. So server tokens, we want to change that to prod. Server signature, we want off. And we want to add the following headers. I'm going to add the headers right here. I'm going to pre-enable this one. So we want to enable that once TLS is set up. A little reminder for ourselves. And we want a content security policy header. Now the one I'm putting in this, I'm leaving wide open. Once you get your site set up and configured, Mozilla has a tool that works with Observatory to allow your content policy to be more specific. Basically, we'll go through your site and tell you what you need for your content site policy. And there was one other header I wanted to talk about, because it's not compatible with Joomla. It just breaks everything, and that's the refer policy. So I'm going to just comment it out. Putting that policy in place seems to just break Joomla. So it's best if you just leave it disabled. Save and quit, restart Apache. And we're going to do a new scan. So you see we have a B, and we'll just enable this strict refer policy. Scan it again. So we got a bit of a caching issue. We'll come back to it later, because now that we have this set up, we need to set up our DNS. Now, I have a kind of a unique thing where my DNS is on my primary site is on a shared host, and if you want to do something with your domain on that kind of thing, you have to edit an A record and a AAA, or the text record for that to get your DNS to work properly. Okay, so I've made a change to my DNS. Just need to wait for it. Like I said, I had to add an A and a text record. It's just the way that my domain is set up with my host. We want web 1. Okay, we're back. Our DNS is resolving. So you can see our web demo 1. And we'll do web 1 administrator. And there's our login. Okay, so we're able to log in to our domain. DNS is working. And now we're going to set up Let's Encrypt on our server. Now you'll recall we have a header and rename after the fact. You must have the DNS set up before you do this. There we go. Typo. So we're going to add SerpBot. Now, on the Azure server, it has several different options. This web server is a single CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, because I like having lots of RAM. It's also on premium SSD. The estimate is about $2 to $3 a day to run the server. So, it's a couple dollars a day if you want to run your own cloud. It also depends on the amount of traffic you're seeing. Alright, so remember we set up our alias. It's a good idea to have a look and see what the alias was for our server, but we already know that. It's web1.optionkey.ca. So now we're going to do we'll just double check it. So there's our name, web demo, and web1. So now we're going to do sudo Apache 2 control config test. So syntax is okay. If you want to take care of the fully qualified domain name, we can edit the host file. It's not necessary for this. If you get that warning, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect what we're doing. Going to enable our firewall. And we also want to allow SSH. Enable the firewall. Okay, so we have Apache and SSH enabled. Now we're going to add our SSL cert. Now, because my root is somewhere else, I'm going to just do it for the subdomain. Now here, you have to get this all right, otherwise you gotta start over because the console just gets messed up. Agree. Yes. Now we have the option for doing the redirect, which we want. And now we have everything all set up. If we want to do a test run of our renewal, we just run cert-bot renew. Where is that? So there's our test. There we are. Forgot. Try run. Here we are. Still checking. Alright, so everything looks good. So now we got an A for all our policies. We have all our secure headers, even though one of them is wide open. That's our content secure policy. And now I'll show you what I mean by one of them. Well, if you have your headers too tight, it'll break the Joomla site. But here we have SSL. We'll do a scan with observatory. Now, we have to remove a couple of the obsolete oh, forgot the cookie. So our content secure policy, it's not secure. Cookies, let's enable that. So we have a couple old ciphers to get rid of. We've got SSL labs. Domain is subdomain. Got 75 out of 11 out of 100. We'll just have to wait for the caching to go. Another security we can run secure check. Well, let's restart Apache. So we're having just an issue reloading our Apache. It's not reading our website header tag. That's fine. We can also use pen test tools. And there are a couple other ones I have listed on my blog, so you feel free to look those up. So we have 1 medium warning, 2 low, and 7 info. Password autocomplete. It's up to you what you want to do with that, but overall, pretty good. Have to disable directory listing. Want to do that? We can do something with indexes, or do a couple other things with htaccess, where those directories are. We'll just reinitiate the observatory scan, or we'll just get a different thing for testing, make sure nothing's broke. Here we'll load the Sorcerer plugin. Alright, so everything seems to be good with our site. Pretty secure, not too bad. A couple things we need to do: get rid of a couple old cipher suites, and we'll go over how to do that in another video cast and blog post. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope you found this useful, and good luck securing your web servers.